Hello, Midnight Coders, and welcome to a series where we are going to build you a portfolio. So, in the last video, we made a registration system where we could create a user. So in this video, we are going to upgrade that registration system to include the user's name so that we can build them a portfolio for that user. So, make sure you've got that full cup of coffee and let's dive on in. All right, so now before we dive too deep into this video, we've got to cover a few changes that we want in order to make this work. So if you remember early on, we just let Spring do its thing for the login process. Well, today, we're going to replace the login system with our own login system. Let's take a look and see what that looks like and how we go ahead and do that. First thing we're going to need to do is make a little change to our web security. So let's take a look here at our security configuration. We're going to need to add in um, a login, and we are also going to need to have a place for errors to happen. So we'll just set this up like this for now. Next, we're going to need to come down to our form login, and we're just going to get rid of this and say login, login, and then we're going to make drop down to a new line, and we are then going to say dot login page. We want that to be that of login. Next, we want to have a default success URL to be that of just simply the home page. And of course, we want that to be always used. So now, next, after this, we want to have a failure URL, which is just simply going to take us back to the login and give us the error, or give us an error. Um, and then, of course, we want to permit everybody. Now, our logos, we simply have to add a success URL. So this one again is just going to be a logo success. And of course, this is going to take us back to the home page. All right, so next, we need to lift this bcrypt and password out of here. So we are going to create a new file. This is just going to be we're going to make a password encoder config. This guy is going to get annotated with a configuration. And then of course we're going to just come back in here and copy this, because that's exactly what we want. Next, we're going to do the same thing for the authentication provider, in that we are just going to create an auth config. And again, this guy is going to be that of configuration, but it's also going to need a couple of constructors or a couple of arguments here. So we are going to have a private final custom user detail service, and then we're going to have a private final, and this is actually a crypt password encoder, and we'll call it password encoder. And then next we are, gonna have that. This is that. This goes up here. We don't need this anymore. Provide this. So now we can come into our security configuration and we can get rid of this bean. And now our separation of concern is a little bit better. So we have um, our authorization configuration, our password configuration, and our security configuration. So next, let's go take a look at the sitemap. We need a way to get to our login page. So if we open this up here, do a little duplicate here, call this login, and login. Now you'll notice that this didn't throw an error. That's because I've already got a simple um, error here, or a simple login page already done. So next, let's go into the POM because we're going to need to add some validation to our project. So we're going to pop into the pom.xml, and this is just as good a place as any. So we're going to come down here, we're going to slap in a new dependency. This one is going to be from Spring Boot Starter Validation. And this comes from the Spring Boot, and Spring is going to handle the rest. So now we refresh our project, and we go make some changes. So we're going to our first changes are going to be inside of the registration request. So to save us a little bit of time, I do have this typed out. So I'm just going to slap it in here, and then we will read through what it's saying. So we added in a last name and first name, and we've added in some annotations for not blank. These are validation annotations that will help tell Spring or help Spring understand that if this string is blank, then we're going to say that we have a message for you. That message is going to be whatever we put here. Now, the other annotation that we can add here on top of this not blank for the email is we can actually come in and add an email. And if it is not of an email format, it will throw a message saying that this is an invalid email format. Pretty cool. So how does that work? We will get into that once we get into controllers. So next thing we want to do is actually build out and map out the profile. So let's go into our model, create a new Java class, call this guy profile, and I am actually going to save a little bit of time here because once again, I do have this typed out, so I am just going to slap it in and we will go through our imports. So let's break this down. What is all of this nonsense? So we have an entity so that we know it tracks an ID. This is a table, and it is going into the profiles table of our database. The other thing that we're going to do is slap on getters and setter. This is so that we can access these. Now, inheritance. What does this do? This allows us to say that this class supports inheritance. It can be inherited. We can have a child of this profile. And I'm going to show you a neat little hack. This is not necessarily the optimal way to do this, but I thought I'd squeeze in this little hack in this video to show you how you can essentially extend things. So this here is our profile. We have a generated UUID for keeping track. We have a first name, a last name, a created at, and an updated at. This is all we need. And before we persist it, we are going to set the created date to right now and the updated to the created. And then before we do any kind of updates to our database, we're going to set the update to be that of right now. So next, let's make a child. So we're going to come in here and we're going to make something called an admin profile. Okay, so now this guy is kind of cool. So this guy is going to have the at entity. We're going to give it the, well, we don't necessarily need to give it getters and setters because we're not putting anything in here at the time. However, you can see where I'm going with this. Next, we're going to say the table is that of admin profiles. And this guy here is throwing an error because we have to tell it that it extends profile, and now it's not. Now it's all happy. Why is it happy? Because the profile is the parent, and it already has an ID and all of the extra useful stuff and all of the extra methods that are in it. The admin profile is just a child of the parent. So now we'll get into that in a little bit on why that is a useful hack. And we're going to set it up so that the first user that registers is going to be given an admin profile. Again, this is just one of those little hacks, one of those little tricks that is kind of a nice thing. There's other ways to do this. Again, you could just give them a role, check the authority, and uh, go forth from there. However, let's now create a post. So we'll go into here, we'll make a new class, we'll call this post. And yes, you've guessed it, I am going to save us a little bit of time. And we'll just paste this in. I'm going to pop back into here. And we are going to more or less just steal these imports. And then we, of course, are going to slap in the old getter, setter, just to have them in here so that we can use. And now we have a comment. Now let's make our comments. So a comment, again, you can see here that these again are just entities, they're tables, they've got the generated ID. This one has a title and a content. Because the post is going to each post is going to have obviously a title and some content, and then we're going to have a list of comments that are going to be referred to or be referenced here because every post is going to have a list of comments. And again, we have our created and updated. Now, this one-to-many mapping means that this one entity, meaning the this class that we're in, it has many of these elements. In our case, it has a list. So that's how we state this. So now if we come over here and create a comment, which will make that happy, once again, we are going to slap in our little, I'm going to call them trusted and trusted little imports. And now you can see that we are going to, and once again, slap in the getter and setters. But now this is a comment. A comment, again, has an ID, it has a many-to-one relationship because many comments can belong to one post. So again, that is many of this entity belongs to one of that entity. Hope that makes sense. And again, we have down here a one-to-one. One profile can have one comment. Very simple, straightforward. And then, of course, we have the content and then timestamps. So now if we come back into our post, we import the list. Everything is happy. Now, what's the next thing that we can do? We want to be able to service these things. So let's pop into our, or actually, I guess first, let's create the repositories. So I'm just going to pause here while I quickly create the repositories. There's nothing fancy going on inside of them, so just to save you the agony. All right, so now we have our admin profile, our comment, our post, and our profile repositories. Again, there is nothing special about these. I just didn't want to bore you with the the creation. So next, let's take a look at the service layer, uh, where we're going to be doing some business logic with our things. So first, let's go in and we're going to create a new class. This is going to be a profile service. Um, and now I do have some code here that is going to again be copy pasted and we will run over it. First and foremost, though, we need to bring in our private this is just going to be a profile repository. Jeepers. So we need a way to create a um, portfolio, or sorry, a profile. So here we can copy in our profile. We're going to copy in or import our user, admin, request, and this is again going to have a one-to-one mapping. Its join column is going to be based off of the user ID, not the actual user. So that's going to be how we are joining this to that. So now if we go back into our profile service, what we're doing here is when we go to create our profile, we are going to say, okay, take in the user and take in the registration request. Get the count, and if the profile current count is 0, meaning there's nothing in there, meaning this is our brand new account, first account, we're going to say make it an admin. Otherwise, just make it a regular profile. And that's when we're going to set up the details. Now, next, we are going to need to have a we're going to have two other quick methods in here. One is a list to be able to get all profiles, and the other is to get a specific profile based off an ID. Now, the next thing we want to do is make a post service for handling how we can create and handle posts. So we'll check out the post service. We'll add this guy to our bin. And again, this one here has I do have some pre-done code, and I am only doing this once again just to reduce the amount of time spent in the writing code and boring, essentially potentially boring. So what we're doing here, okay, we are going to need to make a post creation request. So we are going to create this guy, and it is going to be into here, and we will, okay, we're just gonna have to pick the, oh, here we go. Okay, so I want this to go into the DTO package. Okay, okay. Now, this guy here is going to have getter, setter, and it's going to have title and content. So now back inside of our post service, you can see here now this is all happy, and we can move forward. Next, we are going to need to make a user service. So we're going to come in here, user service, and um, make that class. And once again, I am just going to copy this in here, and we'll go over the fact that we have a service, and all this is simply doing is fetching the user um, out of the repository based off of their username, or else it's going to throw a conniption fit that the user wasn't found. So how do we bring all this together? How do we wrap this up and bring this all together? Let's create a new controller. So we're going to make a, and this is going to be where we're going to bring some validations all together as well. So we're going to make a new controller. This guy is going to be a blog controller. And again, we'll add that, jump here. This one's going to be annotated as a controller. We're going to have a request mapping, if I can do this right. Request mapping. This is going to be of blogs. And we are also going to need a required args constructor, just so that we don't write too much overhead. Now, we're going to have a private final user service, because we do want to be able to pull the user out. And then we are also going to have a private final post service, so that we can make posts from our blog. So one of the first things we're going to do, I'm going to copy paste this guy in here, and we're going to talk about it. So this guy is going to be a get mapping. It does not have any sort of mapping provided, so it is right at the root of localhost/blogs, and it is specifically for GET requests. And with this, we are going to take in the authentication, as well as we're going to take in a model, so that we can provide a quick little check to see if the authentication is null, or we are not authenticated, or by chance the authentication happens to be an instance of anonymous, then we're going to redirect our user to log in. Now, the next thing that we're going to do, that I forgot to do, was go back into the user and tie our user to a profile. So now in here, we are going to have to make a one-to-one, which is going to be the profile. So now back in our controller, as you see, we're getting the username, we're fetching the user based on the username, and then we're grabbing the profile from the user. We're going to check to see if the profile is that of an admin profile, meaning it was the first user that made it. Then we're going to say, okay, this person is obviously the owner. And we're going to say, okay, is owner. We're going to set that to whatever the value is here. And then we're going to stick the posts. We're going to grab all the posts we have and stick it here. And I will also explain why this is bad later, because we will later on do a little fine-grained tuning, and we will talk about uh, pagination, where we will get just the just a specific amount of uh, posts per page. But for now, we're going to continue on. So next, we want a way to be able to create a post. So to do that, we need to make a post mapping so that we can make post requests to send something new. This is going to be to blogs/post, and we're going to say that this one here is going to take in some validation. Oh, it's going to validate, it's going to require a requested body. In our case, it's going to require that it be a post creation request, and we're going to validate it. Now, if you this doesn't have it, so we're going to slap it in here. This is going to say not blank, and it's going to have a message of title is required, and we're also going to slap in a message here. So what this does is when we say that we want to validate this request, it's going to come in and execute these validations. So it's going to check to see if the string is blank, then it's going to flag a validation error, and it's going to set the message to whatever it is that we have in the parameters. Now, how do we display that? So what if the validation fails? That's where we have this binding result. And what the binding result is going to do is it's going to take the validation request and store the actual validation results. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, if the binding result has any errors, then we're going to say, okay, we're going to add errors to our parameter, and then we're going to redirect, and then we're going to stick in all of the errors that we had, and we're going to redirect the user to the home page, which I realize now we're actually going to redirect them to an error page that we will create later, and it is going to have the actually, no, I don't need that because the errors are going to be displayed as we go in, and we will just loop over those errors on our error page that we will create later. So next, what if we want to just get a specific post? We've clicked on a link, we want to view some post. So that is where we take in this next get mapping, and here we're introducing the idea of a path variable. So we're going to say, okay, if they would go to localhost /blogs/post and they provide an ID number after a slash, um, and that this is a get request. So that's kind of a key thing here is it has to be a get request in order for this to happen. And then we take that ID and we store it as a string. We then use the UUID to format that string that we just passed in as that path variable. And we then, from there, fetch the specific post for the specific ID. And then we pass it in to our post HTML, which we will have to create. Next, we go and take a look at the profile controller. This would be something that is more used for an API reason. So we're going to go in here and create a new controller. And again, we are going to just call this guy profile controller. Now the difference between this one and the last one is this guy is just going to be that of a REST controller. We'll have our required args constructor. but then we're going to have the request mapping to be that of API slash v1 for version 1, and this is going to be profiles. So now what we're going to do here is we are going to have a private final. You have to spell that wrong or it won't work. Oh my god, I failed that twice. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a get mapping. This get mapping is going to return all profiles. So this is going to be a public response entity for get profiles. And we just got to come through and clean up some imports. This is going to have a list of profiles, and this is going to be get all profiles. There we go. Next, we need a way to get a specific one. So again, we're going to come down here, and we are basically going to do this, except this guy is actually going to be a is it parameter path variable? Yeah, path variable. And it's going to be string ID. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to say var uuid is equal to uuid dot from string, and we're going to pass in the ID, pass in the uuid, and this is going to be get profile for ID. There. That is our RESTful API. So next, what are we looking at next? Well, let's give this bad boy a run and see what it looks like. So let's have a look at these HTML pages before we get too far. So you'll see here, this is the blog page where it just simply takes in the header. It does a quick little check to see if we are the owner, and we add a little create button. This is just our creation model so that we see what pops up when we click create button. After that, we have the list of containers down here. This is our actual posts. So here we stick in the blog name here. We can change that to whatever you want. And then we have the list. If the list is empty, we say there are no blogs found. Else, if the lists are not empty, so unless they are, meaning obviously if else, then what we want to do is go through and for each post in the array of posts or the list of posts, we want to do something for each of those posts. In our case, we're going to come down here and we're going to stick the created date. We're going to stick the title, and we are going to stick a view post button on the bottom. Very simple. Our login page just is very simple as well, and it has a parameter of error, so we can take in an error and provide some text, like invalid username, invalid password, whatever it is. Register we've already went over with the addition of the last name and the first name. So, what else have we done? All right, so let's fire this bad boy up and take a look and see what we have. So if we open up our browser, we get flashbanged as usual. We're going to come in, we're going to create an account. Creating this account should by default make it a admin profile, as we mentioned earlier. Now if you come in here and we go to blogs, we'll see that there are no blogs created. Because I'm an admin, I can then create a post. I'm going to go ahead and say the hello world. I did some blog shit. Look at that. We have a blog. We can click on it to view it. We can come in. We see the title. We see the blog post. And yet I can comment. So let's drop a coffee. That was cool. Let's do it again. Oh, that was super cool. Satisfying. Let's do it one more time. Yeah. All right. And that is that. All right, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed this so far. So as you can see, we now have a blog working on our site, on our portfolio. And next and finally last, we will be creating the well, not last, but we will be creating a section for us to um, add in our showcase. We'll make a showcase tab where we're going to have we'll be able to add links or add GitHub projects to it, and we'll tidy it up with a nice little synopsis of what the project is in a little card view with a link to go off to the GitHub so that you can just add in some GitHub projects. And then everything's going to look a little more full. Then it's up to you guys to add some styling to it. Make the portfolio look a little bit better. So make sure you've subscribed so that you will get notified when the fourth video comes out. And as always, keep your curiosity open, your skills sharp, and that coffee cup full, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.